PT15 is exercise for advanced conditioning. And this is a boomer, this session. This is the last theory session that the friends go through before they return for their final weekend of assessments. And this one brings in advanced conditioning and athletic conditioning. There's a fair bit on offer in this session, and there's also a really big volume of resource that they can use within their notes for this as well. The key to this session is getting the mix right, getting the blend right between theory and practical without going overboard and into so much depth that the friends lose themselves. In the first part of the session, we're looking very much at the athletic model and the athletic conditioning model as a model for how you can take normal clients through programming as well. So we're going to use examples in this. Gear your examples towards the Dingo case study examples, which are netball and basketball. So if you speak in that language and the friends can get a good idea of what those sports look like and what they involve, that'll go a long way towards them getting in their heads what's going to be required when they get into the Dingo as well. Also worthwhile that talking about clients working along athletic lines allows you to get into some higher end programming, which makes your client more versatile at moving, more resilient in moving, and allows you to set up more programs along long-term programming lines with periodizations. This session opens up a lot in terms of long-term programming. Now, when we're talking about energy systems in this part of the course, we're drawing on what they've already learnt back in their energy systems component. A lot of friends will still have issues with this when you mention lactate threshold and lactate tolerance. That's an area that can be quite confusing for friends, so you'll need to spend some time going back over energy systems. The key thing that you'll need to spend time on is the relationship between an energy system as being the primary contributor to energy production in any given activity versus friends thinking you only use phosphate for the first 10 seconds, you only use lactate if the activity goes for 30 to 2 minutes, you only use aerobic system after that. They need to be clear that it's always a blend of energy systems and that we're talking about predominance in energy systems when we're training for lactate, for aerobic system, for phosphate. When you get to the lactate tolerance component of this and the lactate threshold component, work through the two of them so friends can get the idea of one being high-end aerobic and one being anaerobic. So they need to get that clear. There's a very good table in their notes and there's a really good slide that goes through the timeframes for this. To make this dovetail nicely into the energy systems, use those two tables and expand on it for the phosphate-based training at the end, so they've got lined up like ducks 3 or 4 tables that explain what the energy systems are. In terms of relating it back to things they've experienced, relate the sprint work back to the experience that they had in their outdoor training. So they've had some real-world experience of work and recovery ratios as they get through this one. Now there are 2 practicals in this session. And a good way to perform the session is 1 practical before the break, 1 practical after the break. Depending on the equipment that you've got, will have a big bearing on what things you're going to put into the practicals. Friends need to experience Tabata training, but they don't necessarily need to go through Conconi tests. So it depends on how much equipment you've got. For the Tabata component of it, set the group up in the 8 minutes before their break. After their break, when they come back, we go through some more advanced programming, and that leads into the practical on Olympic lifting. And what I'd like to do now is go through what these will look like in the room. For the Tabata challenge, get the friends out into the gym, convince them that practice is king, convince them that by experiencing Tabata, they'll now know the secret of 4-minute training, and convince them that great things are possible, because lots of the groups won't believe you when you talk about 4-minute training. A great way to set up a group of 32 people is to put them into 4 groups of 8. Organise them so you've got north, south, east and west facing friends. So every group has 4 points. At each of the 4 points there's a station, a box sprint, a band fast row with lunge, jump squat, and push-ups. That arrangement allows you with minimal equipment to have maximal engagement amongst the friends. It will pay off. The way you work it, on the inside of the circuit is the client. On the outside is the PT. The PT is basically crank up the enthusiasm, crank up the motivation so that when the friends go 20 seconds flat out, they've got someone whipping them. Go 20 seconds flat out, 10 seconds to transition into the next station to your count, and then they go again. So the friends move around, trainer and client, the entire circle twice. And that enables 4 full minutes going through everything twice of training. And they should be shattered by the end of it, as we know. Once they've been through that, give them maybe 2 or 3 minutes to recover, and then they swap roles. And that way, when they take their break, anyone who needs to rush to the toilets or get a bucket can do so in the privacy of their own amenity. The second practical in this session comes after the speed, agility, quickness section, which you do straight after the break. That way the friends have recharged, they've gone through a little bit more theory, you've related it back to some things they've experienced, particularly in outdoor training and in the Tabata session that they've just had, and then they go into the gym for plyometric training and for Olympic lifting. Now with this one, Olympic lifting is experiential and it's a taster. There's some excellent pictures and great descriptions in their notes on Olympic lifting, but we're going to keep it basic. Very important tip for you. If you haven't done Olympic lifting before, you're going to look really silly if you don't practice at least something relating to it prior to this session. So your demonstrations need to look good. If a friend's already got good lifting experience, if you've got CrossFitters in your group or Olympic lifters in your group, get a hold of those people and use those as a model for some of the things that you want to show. We go pretty basic with the lifts though. So we're looking at high pulls, we're looking at cleans, power cleans, and a clean into a press. For that part of the practical, you need to divide the group in half. You'll have 16 people in one group going through Olympic lifting, and 16 people in the other group going through plyometric work, which you can set up. Make sure the groups are well separated. For your Olympic lifting group, have 8 bars. Now you won't be able to get 8 Olympic bars. You'll need to use body pump bars for this, and for the friends, it's just an idea of working through some basic patterns. The important thing with this is that they see the patterns, realise the complexity, and it's critical that you ground it with, you must practice this stuff for many months to get good at it. So if they're interested in going down that route, get themselves involved with a group of lifters who are involved with this and who can coach them through the entire process. Safety is everything, so you must keep the weight light and keep the repetitions relatively low. Friends can go through a number of sets where one friend acts as a PT, the other friend acts as the client. That'll keep it safe and the friends will get a great experience. The session run for PT15, exercises for advanced conditioning. Start with your introduction. Look at screening and testing, keeping it brief. Talk about lactate focus, and then move to Tabata training prac. Have your break. Come back to phosphate focused training. Talk about plyometrics. Then it's into the gym for the plyometric and Olympic lifting prac. Make sure with the plyometric component that you're putting in some pretty good examples that would work with basketball and netball. Then come back into the room, give a little bit of briefing into the dingo and round up the session.